At the Demon King castle, in the depths of hell, an army of elite demonic creatures line the path to the throne. The all-powerful Demon King sitting atop the throne gives some backhanded appreciation to the human that made it here, ending, but this is it for you, ordering his army to kill the intruder. Yet, facing the charging army of demons, the magic marksman smirks, activating his power as he continues leisurely toward them, summoning 2 guns from his magic circles, one in each hand, and charging right back at the wave of demons. Then using the skill Bullet Dance to shred his way through them, leaving their corpses tattered with gaping holes. The marksman, having finished his barrage, then gets attacked by a crushing blow that sends tendrils of black lightning flying in its wake. But the powerful attack was too slow for the gunslinger, who appears in the dissipating smoke, gun drawn. The once mighty demon army left as nothing more than a pile of smoldering corpses. The Demon King, enraged at the sight, now stands before his throne, scythe raised. The Demon King mustering a storm of demonic energy in a show of power, before sending a wave of energy toward the marksman with a single slash of his scythe. The marksman barely leaning back in time to avoid the energy wave that destroyed the landscape behind him in an enormous explosion. The Demon King, unrelenting, strikes down on the marksman, who, only able to block, gets pushed back from the force, then quickly dashes away from a follow-up energy attack. He then tries to counter with his gunfire, but the Demon King remains unfazed, protected by the magic barrier powered by the dark stone on his forehead. The Demon King then sends 4 purple orbs of energy to chase the marksman, who attempts to evade with his swiftness, but ultimately gets hit by one, sending his 2 guns flying from his hands. Still confident, he summons a sniper rifle, asking if that is really the case to the demon's claims of invincibility, then taking aim and firing with the skill Moonlight Bullet, sending a golden streak directly for the dark stone. The Demon King's invincible barrier cracking on impact. The infuriated Demon King yelling that he will die by his hands, sending a flood of shadowy tendrils his way. The marksman, almost completely engulfed by the shadows, says, "Let's end this, Demon King." Unleashing one final blow, Dawn's Judgment, sending a massive spiraling shot of energy hurtling toward the Demon King, shattering his magical barrier and blowing straight through the head of the Demon King, wreaking havoc to the surroundings. Despite this, the Demon King remains standing, screaming in agony and fury. The marksman, acting quickly, grabs his gun, still on the floor, and leaps into the air above the Demon King, blowing a hole through his head with the final words, "After enduring this much, it's time to see the ending." Game clear. Having just completed World version 2.0 with his Magic Marksman build, the protagonist of the story notes how fun magic skills were to use, thinking for the updated World version 3.0, he will be a mage. However, a normal mage would be too boring, so using World's Karma system that gives you benefits in exchange for penalties, he lays on all but 2 of the penalty traits in exchange for the normal traits and additional stats, creating what he deems to be the ultimate mage build, though he will be super sick, thinking it matters not, after all, it's just a game character. Lennox wakes to the shouts of a bearded man who socks him in the face, telling him to wake up as he throws him to the floor. You see, the last thing our protagonist remembers is the completion of the loading screen, upon which an immense gravitational force caused him to lose consciousness as he felt like he was being sucked inside, finding himself here and now as the weak character that he had created. After receiving the harsh reprimand of the supervisor, Lennox looks up to see the others joking at his state before running off to work at the supervisor's shouts. Only a man named Van, called aside by the supervisor, asking about the Order of Viper, whilst our protagonist laments that he is now stuck in this pathetic body. 3 days pass, and our protagonist quickly adjusts to his new life of constant labor, but still knows very little as whenever he asks around, he gets no response. After all, they already see him as a dead man. Lennox again chewed out for his worthlessness, having dropped a box of parts. The sickly man falling into a fit of coughs, our protagonist thinking he must only be sane thanks to the willpower he put into the character. The supervisor telling him not to get in their way away and to go die in a corner. Our boy thinking the only benefit of this body is magic talent, and if he could manage to bring out that ability, he'd be able to escape. Then, spotting an exit, the ignored and near invisible Lenok makes his way toward a door that leads outside. Spying through a crack in the door, he sees two men speak about the delivery for the Union the day after tomorrow, and how the Union takes their product and sells it to the Black Mage. Our boy relieved that magic really exists in this world. The two men then pulling out and talking about a body enhancer called Viper and the filter within that contains mana. With the protagonist sensing the mana within the liquid, a shock rang through him as if something exploded inside his body. The sixth sense that exceeds all others, or his alter ego, coming to grasp this new sixth sense, allowing him to recognize what was always flowing all around, the fundamental power that makes up this world, the world's magic. At night, our protagonist hides under the covers as he practices magic, thinking that with this amount he should be able to escape, planning to make a break in 2 days when the Union comes, since the security should be weaker. Then, having the revelation to use the light, the magic skill he learned, on his skin to make it look like he's got a fever and on the verge of death, so he'll be left alone. On the day of the Union visit, our boy's plan is going off without a hitch. All the other workers thinking he's at death's door, Van stepping forward to deal with it, the others going off to not see what is to come. Our protagonist now in a true hot sweat over the unexpected scenario, but thankfully Van simply tells him to take this and hands over a vial of Viper, telling him it's a cheap enhancer but enough for the road he has left ahead. Now alone, the protagonist is left in awe at the effect the enhancer had on him, thinking that with this, his plan has now changed. The feeble Enoch approaches a worker in the dock, informing the agitated man that he was sent on an errand to the director's office for Viper. The man annoyedly telling him to follow. Opening the door to the director's office, he tells him to hurry up, but with the door now open, our boy makes his move, activating his magic and grasping the man's neck, letting off an electric charge of lightning, picking up the collapsed man's car keys and going searching around the office, finding a gun, some clothes, and the Viper. But just before he can reload on the Viper, the supervisor enters the office to the side of a collapsed body. The protagonist using his magic once more, trying to take him off guard, but this time the sneak attack fails and the supervisor backs up. Then realizing it's Lenok, he goes to attack, but thinking fast, our boy pulls out the gun, freezing him in his tracks. The supervisor then tries reasoning with Lenok, apologizing and swearing silence if he just lets him live, but he knows his words are just lies. Our protagonist in a cold sweat over what to do. At the security check for the exit, the guard wonders why Mark, the owner of the car, is leaving. Then, finding himself held at gunpoint by the protagonist, who orders him to open the gate. Scared to death, he complies, pleading for his life, when a call comes over the radio to seal off the exit now. One of the workers having found the bloody corpses of his workmates in the office. The guard mutes the call with an apology, but behind weary eyes, our protagonist coldly states, "If I leave you behind, you'll just become a problem," pulling the trigger and blowing out his brains, sending them splattering through the window behind. Our protagonist only thinking of how his high mental strength and rationality suppresses his fear and guilt, allowing him to maintain his sanity with level-headedness that grows even stronger in extreme situations as he makes his escape. Our boy arriving in the magic engineering city, Balkan, a dense cyberpunk metropolis. The protagonist looking around thinking everything has a little mana mixed into it, probably meaning there's a huge mana contribution to this world's civilization. Feeling weary, he goes to take some Viper, but with so few left, he decides to keep them for emergencies. Finally entering a hotel room, after parting with the car, he passes out in exhaustion, unable to even make it to the bed. Waking up parched, he grabs a drink from the fridge, but after taking a gulp, coughs it all up, slumping to the ground, queasy, with a splitting headache due to the stimulant's after effects. Still, if he wants to move this body, he needs to rely on the stimulants for now. Then, he grabs some canned food out of the fridge to eat, a telephone device informing him that his stay will end in 2 hours, and it plus the canned food is 220,000 cell. The protagonist with only 10,000 cell left after paying up, thinking he needs more money. Then deciding to change up his look, cutting his hair short so people won't recognize him. On the streets without an identity as an illegal visitor, he deems he won't be able to make money legally, and so gathers mana in his ears, listening to the surrounding conversations for criminals he can take money from since they won't cause him future problems. Eventually finding the conversation of some people shaking someone down for stolen money. Getting up to head there, he stumbles because of his weak body, taking a hit of Viper to enhance his vitality, now ready to earn some money. In an alleyway, a man cowers on the floor before two ruffians preparing to cut up his body parts to make up for the stolen money he lost. The pair suddenly electrified unconscious thanks to the lightning magic of our boy, who then goes on to search the pockets of the defenseless men, acquiring 700,000 cell and a laser cutter that was altered to be used as a weapon. The cowering man then saying he won't tell anyone what he saw, but our boy doesn't buy it, instead offering an exchange, asking if he knows anywhere he can get unlawful work, even better if it has to do with magic. Our protagonist rocking up to the place he was told with some fresh clothes, altering his appearance before he enters to that of a handsome young man to hide his identity. Inside at the bar, he asks for anything light from the bartender, then asking for some work that needs a mage, the bartender giving some signal, cueing the entrance of a beautiful woman in casual wear, asking what he's doing when work hours are through. The bartender replying he's a mage, earning her subtle surprise since he doesn't look the part, but as mages are rare, she brushes over it, introducing herself as Jenny. The protagonist replying in kind, introducing himself as Van, unwilling to give his real name. Leaning over the bar, she asks what he can do since he's a mage, her chatter interrupted by the summoning of lightning from Van's hand, catching the eye of both Jenny and the bartender at the rare side of magic, activated without a magic circle or incantation. Her quickly slamming down a contract for him to sign, then offering his first job, a bounty hit for Taylor Evans, who tried to steal Achilles' security equipment for 3 million cell. Her explaining that in a hit gone wrong, his team all got killed, and now Achilles palmed off the cleanup to them, and since the scavenger group he was with withdrew involvement, there won't be any problems. Also receiving a blood sample Achilles collected from the scene, Jenny wondering why he needs it when a blood mage would cost 5 million or more for the case. However, our protagonist doesn't need one, as he can use the common magic from his memories of World 2.0, now activating 2.0's hunter-type magic Bloody Chase, sending a crimson snake on the blood trail. The snake flawlessly finding its way to its target before dispersing in a puff. Taylor Evans, confused at what just occurred, turning around to find the menacing figure of Van, who greets him with a "I found you, Taylor Evans." With his location exposed, Taylor Evans makes a dash for it, Van leisurely strolling after him, using the skill Soundwave to create a magic-infused concussive wave, slamming into the back of the bounty, knocking him to the ground. Now screaming in agony, his ears bleeding and body trembling, when a magic bullet crashes against Van's magic barrier, protecting his mark from the snipe. Van strengthening his barrier, thinking it was fortunate he set it up beforehand, then expanding his magical sense to the surrounding kilometer. The sniper nowhere to be found, either shooting from beyond 1 kilometer or using some camouflage that simple detection magic can't detect. Van then realizing that it was not him but the bounty that was targeted by the snipe. Our boy then whipping out his gun, taking aim at Taylor Evans, unwilling to be looked down on and ruin Van's image, pulling the trigger thinking only of how Van being known as cruel and cold-blooded will benefit him in the future. The sniper spying on the situation, moving in shock at the sudden death. Van not missing the sniper's unrest in their mana wave, activating his lightning magic with a common magic in mind, perfect for this range, raising his hand engulfed in lightning to the sky, then suddenly dispersing the magic in his hand, confusing the sniper at his actions. The sniper noticing the rumbling and light show from the clouds above. Van then activating his magic Thunder Calling with a cold stare, taking aim. A thick streak of lightning descending on the sniper, demolishing the top of the building. Van slowly making his way over to the scene of the strike, thinking the sniper mustn't have been ordinary, as there is no trace of them, deciding that was enough for a warning, so there's no need to chase the sniper. In this show of power will make known the lightning mage Van's name. Van, out of breath, dropping the body bag of the bounty in the bar. The bartender taken aback, informing him that there's a back door for this. The bartender in the back deciphering the cause of death from the corpse, then offering several payment methods for the bounty. Jenny walking in impressed at the speed of Van's work, questioning what kind of talents he has to find and kill his mark so quickly. Him replying, "I just got lucky." The two then holding gazes in silence. Her moving past it, saying since he's this capable, she'll keep working with him. Him then leaving, with the two exchanging farewells. With Van gone, the bartender shows Jenny a video of Van's mission he got from the scavenger network. Her astonished by what she sees on the tablet. The next day, at the Balkan City Library, our protagonist studies the magic system of this world, also looking for a way to extend the lifespan of the sickly Lenore, whose life is burning away due to the karma system. Finding the concept of mana patterns unique to each mage, with archmages level 8 and above being able to modify it. Our boy giving it a go himself, unsure of how strong level 8 is, but internally thinking he is definitely talented at this, successfully modifying his mana pattern. After a day of reading, he finds this world's magic doesn't have the concept of common magic. You see, in World 2.0, magic was split into unique magic, a single type of magic which is more specialized and powerful, and common magic that isn't as powerful or deep but has great variation regardless of the attributes or its target. The protagonist confused as to how Lenore can use common magic, no matter how talented he is, since the concept doesn't exist, left with more questions than when he arrived. His thoughts interrupted by a beautiful woman who tells him to give up if he wants to be a mage. Her explaining that she feels sad for him, who has wasted his day reading since it was too late for him to become one, telling him to instead pursue theoretical magic engineering, solemnly stating there is nothing you can do by yourself, as it's a field where luck and talent play a big role. Lenore asking if that advice is from her own experience. Him leaving the now closing library, telling her not to give up on herself and to try everything she can first. The woman, taken aback, stopping him and giving him her card. Her now walking off, saying she'll show him magic if he comes back. Lenore surprised that she was actually a professor. Our protagonist dropping by the food market on the way home, nervously watching a man have his mana pattern scanned for identification as a quick check. Being called out to as he tries to calmly walk away. A tomboyish woman running a stand asking if he did something wrong, since he was staring at the mana pattern check as if guilty of a crime. Him realizing that it is similar to a fingerprint in this world. The two then talking about her stand, uncovering that he's a customer and she's the owner who grows these vegetables as a hobby, also replying to his question that yes, she is rich. Our boy unsure if she's lying or not, thinking she is really pretty though. Her then telling him to try a certain onion that is good for insomnia, adding looks like you need it. Her packing his goods up, then commenting on his unique mana, taking our boy completely off guard as she pressures him, letting out her own mana, asking what a mage like him is doing here. Him in a cold sweat that she not only realized he was a mage, but is casually talking about his mana pattern. Her then sending him on his way, our boy thinking he'll need to pay more attention to his magic. Following that, he spent days inside studying magic to improve his efficiency, his body continuing to decline, only propped up by cheap drugs, him needing an ID and money to get better drugs. At Jenny's bar, Van asks her if she can get him an ID, her replying, "Who do you think I am?" Informing him that it is expensive, 20 million sell. Her telling him not to worry, as she has a new job for him. This one, a request from a business which gets more money than bounty hunting. The two going elsewhere to talk about the job. The target, Charlotte Corp's new makeup factory in District 42. Their new product apparently undergoing a lot of human testing, and the requester, Veritz Corp, wanting them to destroy the factory beyond repair for 50 million. Her then clapping, sneaking in that she'll introduce a partner for the job. A strange man in a full body getup making a bright entrance before Van can complain. clearly off-put by the man. Jenny introducing Dylan O'Casey, a mercenary affiliated with the Interis Merc Group. The two now shaking hands as they exchange greetings. Van asking her not to spring something like this on him in the future. Then asking what's the split, Dylan saying that Jenny probably takes a bit too, but she declines as an apology to Van to make up for the mistake. Her pinning the annoyance, saying, shall we take a look at the blueprint? The way Balkan City is set up, being in numbered districts, the living conditions and facilities increasing the lower the number. Van and Dylan making their way to the factory in District 42, which is in pretty good shape, though a little empty. Dylan bringing up that Jenny must hold him in high regard since she gave up her cut, our boy thinking Dylan might be the type to hide his true self with his flashy appearance. Dylan then giving him a card for his merc group, ending keep this a secret from Jenny. Van saying let's see if you're as good at working as talking. At the factory, spying from Dylan's shoulders, Van says the security doesn't seem very tight. The plan being for Dylan to draw attention from the back door and Van to enter the warehouse and destroy the factory. Dylan bursting off the mark to get the job started, slamming one guard into the floor, knocking them out before swiftly appearing behind another, dealing with him with an elbow to the neck, creeping up on another trying to report the situation. Our protagonist relieved that he doesn't need to worry about him. Van taking a hit of Viper, now ready to get started, strolling toward the warehouse. Our boy breaking into the locked warehouse with the laser cutter he stole, greeted by a trembling guard with gun in hand. Van putting him down with his magic nature sleep. Thinking normal civilians don't need to die, he then uses another magic, marionette, controlling the unconscious man like a puppet and sending him away from the soon to be exploded factory. Van making his way under the factory, thinking everything will be smooth sailing until it's over. Dylan, having dealt with the guards outside, makes his way inside, finding himself lit up with several rifle lasers, joking this kind of makes him feel good. Drawing his knife and taking a fighting stance, declaring now he doesn't have to hunt them down. Going on an absolute rampage, slashing, punching, and kicking his way through them whilst weaving their gunfire, holding one of the guards by the neck asking, who's next? Meanwhile, Van has made his way to the bottom of the factory, releasing the temperature control gas system with great strain thanks to his weak body. Then setting up the spell Ignite and adding another called Timer, setting it to go off in 5 minutes. A sudden sound reaching all the way here, grabbing his attention. Upstairs, the heavy metal warehouse door is kicked in, stopping Dylan in his tracks. A humanoid crocodile menacingly staring him down, saying, you've really made a fucking mess here. Van returning to the ground floor, observing the face-off between the two. The Croc and Dylan, clearly with some history, speaking about Andreas, the youngster who is Dylan's boss. The Croc then moving on to Dylan's current position, saying it is what it is. Dylan cursing himself when the Croc reveals he was paid 10 billion, saying he'll make it painless for Andreas' sake. Him then gladly tossing Dylan his bag at the Merc's request, calling it a toy. Dylan unveiling his spear, taking a fighting stance, expressing that this toy will hurt a lot. Dylan sent slamming into a wall, cracking under the impact. The Croc telling him he's as silly as ever, since it's gonna be painful if he fights back. Dylan taking out an axe instead, since the spear failed, only to find himself slamming into the wall once again, and again, and again, with a new weapon each time. Van watching on, questioning what he should do with Ignite's activation set to go off in 2 minutes. Also thinking that Dylan's deflated attitude toward fighting that bastard must mean he's on a different level. The Croc looking down on Dylan, disappointed that he's not as good as before. Dylan pulling out 2 short swords, brimming with a crimson aura, asking, do you feel some bloodthirst now? Charging forward and clashing against the bare scales of the Croc, who seeing the look in Dylan's eyes finally shows some interest. Dylan then dashing behind him, holding one of his short swords with both hands, and slashing down on his unprotected back. The Croc, unperturbed, swipes back, Dylan using his speed to evade, reappearing from the front and slicing toward him, this time blocked by his forearm. Dylan knuckling down and speeding up even further, unleashing a rampage of attacks. The Croc finding a gap to throw a punch, moments from connecting with his face. just stopped in time by Van's spell, Lightning Bind. The massive croc screaming from the electrocution. Dylan readying himself to take advantage of this opportunity. The now infuriated croc lashing out with a destructive punch, smashing where Dylan was standing. The merc, swords drawn above him, ready to counter, but he gets countered himself with the croc lashing him aside with a whip of his tail. Then taking his neck, holding him up, asking why he didn't tell him about his mage friend. Winding up a punch to send off the flashy merc with a goodbye. Dylan crashing through the warehouse walls, sent flying outside. The croc chuckling at his work, now searching for the mage. Van sneaking out during the commotion, overwhelmed by that bastard who even shook off his lightning bind. Finding the near-dead Dylan outside, wondering how he'll move him. Reinforcing his body's strength and speed with mana as his last option since he doesn't have time to worry about his mana addiction trait. Carrying his partner outside the range of the explosion soon to go off. The croc still inside searching for the mage when he senses a strange feeling giving him pause. The timed ignition spell in the basement finally ticking over to completion. Activating the fiery magic and setting off a massive explosion, completely destroying the factory. On the edge of the explosion, protected by Van's barrier, Dylan complains about the state of his body. Van taking a hit of Viper to re-up his exhausted body. Dylan questioning what he is doing, adding he heard those have severe side effects, though he's drinking them without any problems. Dylan then picking Van up, telling him they need to get out of here, explaining that the croc is definitely still alive, wondering how he doesn't know who the old man is. Informing him that is Croc and Silas from Pandemonium, a former war mercenary who became an executive of Pandemonium after he retired. Pandemonium being a notorious global criminal organization that only invites highly dangerous criminals and outlaws, yet he was able to become an executive there easily. Crocken emerging from the burning factory covered in flames, walking toward them menacingly. Van and Dylan attempting to flee at this sight, but knocked to the ground by the rapid dash of Crocken. Him staring Van down, asking if he is the mage, adding, "You look young for a mage." Van seeing the collapsed Dylan, thinking it's impossible to run away with Dylan now, steeling himself to face the monstrous old man before him. The two now face to face, having a brief exchange. Crocken bursting out in laughter, saying if you hadn't messed with the factory, I would have let you live. Then launching forward with his massive claws, saying, but I have a job to do. Van activating his magic, Gravity Bind, summoning dark tendrils from the floor, stopping Crocken in his tracks, with the shadowy tendrils holding him down, but using his immense strength, he breaks out of the Gravity Bind, tearing the magic from his body. Van deciding that he will no longer be able to hold back as he focuses his mana in his hands. Crocken rushing toward him, unwilling to let him complete this trick, but before he reaches him, our boy, palms on the floor, unleashes his ice magic, Frost Soul, encapsulating Crocken in a crystal of ice. Van then walking over and checking on the snow-covered Dylan, but before the two can escape, the crystal already begins to creak and crack. Van deciding to use his support magic, shooting combo magic from World 2.0, with the little mana he has left, taking out his gun. Enhancing his gun with trajectory guidance, penetration reinforcement, and projectile acceleration, thinking this old gun can't handle the mana, but it matters not since this is the end anyway. With Crocken moments from breaking out of the ice, Van takes the shot, sending a mana-infused bullet streaking toward him. The impact sending Crocken's head back and shattering the ice around him. Van out of breath from the mana usage and the gun in tatters. Dylan expressing his admiration for targeting his eye, asking if it worked this time. Van out of strength saying it must have, but behind the icy haze, Crocken appears, complimenting the very good attempt. The old veteran, one eye burning in fury, with the other holding the still smoking bullet in his eyelid. Van only able to say, "What a fucking monster," as a drop of sweat rolls down his cheek. The inhuman Crocken touching his eye, stating it still hurts a bit. Van and Dylan on their last legs and drained of mana, pulling out their weapons to make a last stand. Whilst Crocken leaps into the sky, brimming with power, dark lightning emanating off him, bearing down on the duo, who can only contemplate if this is how they'll die. The clash resulting in a massive cloud of debris from the impact. Van, stunned to find himself still alive, protected by the magic barrier of a mystery figure. Crocken grimacing, adding that he took too long because now the city government's hunting dog, Evelyn, is here. Her calling the name of the notorious Croc, telling him he crossed the line this time. Her then disengaging their clash with her tonfa baton, separating the two. Evelyn wondering how he thought blowing up an entire factory would go unnoticed. Crocken then trying to plead his innocence in this, pointing to the pair on the floor, pinning them as the culprits. Evelyn not buying that the two that were about to die destroyed an entire factory. Crocken unwilling to fight her since it wasn't in his contract, turning to leave. Van thinking that if he doesn't want to fight her, she must be as powerful as him. The duo then thank her for saving them, with her removing her mask saying they don't need to thank her as it's her duty. Van realizing that she is the vegetable store lady as she extends a hand to him to stand. Van stopping her short, bringing himself to his feet. Her then expressing a strange familiarity about him, but Van brushes it off whilst thinking as a government elite she wasn't lying when she said she was rich. Her agreeing that it's nothing since his mana pattern is different. Van satisfied that he changed his mana pattern this time around. Evelyn concluding their talk with a warning to not get involved with pandemonium if he wants to live a long life. The two men, now on their own, coming to the agreement of Van taking 40 mil from the 50 mil payment since he did the heavy lifting this time. Van again taking a hit of Viper as they leave, the two playfully arguing over his use of the harmful drug. After 4 entire days of sleep, our boy's body is still worn out, him thinking it's probably due to the mana addict trait or from overdosing on Viper. Forcing himself up, deciding he needs to start eating proper meals and find better drugs. But first things first, he needs to collect his pay. Meeting the ever glamorous Jenny at her bar, her happy to see her precious customer after 10 days of silence. With her then pulling out his pay, starting our boy at the 60 million sell in cash, the extra 20 mil coming as a bonus from Viritz. The two then conversing about what happened at the job. Van asking if she has heard the name Evelyn before. Her explaining that she's a direct agent for the state government, practically an armed government unit with massive funding. Her then giving him the info for the fake ID he asked about last time. Jenny also complaining at his lack of a bank account and phone, asking if he knows how hard it is to prepare this much cash. Van conceding to her, then asking for one more favor. Our boy, now with the appearance of a blonde man with glasses greeting the guy Jenny sent him to for the ID. The two getting straight to the exchange with our boy handing over the cash. The man noting that these 1 million cell notes are hard to get your hands on, so clearly Jenny values him highly. The man getting to work explaining that this fake is only changed on the surface, so if someone is determined to find flaws, he will get caught. But if he wants a fully legit fake, he'd need to bribe the network admin, which would cost about 400 mil. Then moving on, using this face for the ID and the name Evan, him not caring what the surname is. Now walking the streets as Lennox with the proof of his settlement in this world, his fake ID for Evan Violin in hand. He then calls Jenny, informing her that this will be his contact from now. Her joking that he's the first to take more than a month to contact her, even if it's only when he wants work. Her then telling him he should get a simple part-time job that he can use as a front. After all, if he keeps getting work with her, the money he earns will continue to increase, and an unemployed citizen having that much money would be suspicious. Ending the call thinking even if Jenny gets friendlier, he can't fully trust her as they both only talk about what they need from each other. Thinking back to the conversation about Viper and her recommendation to a place with higher quality product in District 31. With the note in hand, heading there, he wonders if she intends to deceive him and backstab him or continue working with him by holding on to his secrets. Our boy now appearing as Van heading into the botanical garden as huge as a jungle. Entering a back door in one of the shops, he heads down the steps to find an ominous door with the scent of Viper leaking from it. Opening it to find a laboratory full of chemicals and plants with a figure facing him behind a desk. Van replying to the old man's question that Jenny introduced him to this place. The old man with a glass eye declaring that he never gave her permission to introduce customers to him though. To these words, Van pauses, unsure of the situation, but thankfully the strange elder tells him it's fine as long as he gets his money from customers. Then asking what he's looking for at his orchid. Van then pulling out a vial of Viper, asking for something with similar effects. The old man taking a closer look at the Viper and giving it a taste, explaining that it is super cheap and probably barely strengthen his body. Van explaining that he used it to help with mana, confusing the old man since a trashy one like this shouldn't help with mana, adding that there are rumors that high-class mages can experience rapid effects if they take Viper, but magic takes a long time to learn, so he's too young to be one. Van realizing this is why it was so effective for him, then placing down 2 million sell as budget for the new drugs. Meanwhile, back at Jenny's bar, her and the bartender talk about how, despite Dylan seeing Van use ice magic, he didn't bring it up with her at all. Jenny bursting up saying that he can't just be a simple lightning mage. Then pausing again, wondering why he hid this. Her stating she has never come across a mage as understanding as him, to the agreement of the bartender, who tells her she can only offer him jobs for now. Jenny looking into some merc jobs since he worked with Dylan, who is a merc. The bartender telling her he's helping her because Kaiser asked, but he doesn't know how long he can do this. Warning her that despite her being sharp and smart, she is too impatient. Jenny simply giving him an okay sign, uninterested in his speech. Back at the orchid, the old man reveals Kashade C-107, a drug that provides 6 hours of physical reinforcement, as well as mana and stamina activation, followed by a headache, spasms, vomiting, and maybe even vomiting blood. The old man saying that for 2 million sell, that is the one with the least amount of side effects. Van then taking the box of drugs and going on his way, now ready to prepare for more jobs. Back in his house, our boy sits in a meditation form, harnessing his mana to draw a spherical barrier around his room, also adding some lightning and gravity trap magic for anyone who manages to invade the barrier. Glad that now that he's got a house, he can prepare properly, but before he can start the next step, he gets a call from Jenny, ending the call saying he'll head over now. Our boy looking through the news on his phone to see that the factory incident was covered up as a gas leak. Him thinking he'll have to be more careful when working with businesses as there are things going on outside of his control and sight. Also thinking of the overpowered Kraken and how despite Lennox's insane magic talent, he still couldn't handle him. So he needs more methods other than magic. Unwrapping his second preparation, a brand new handgun. At the bar, Jenny gives Van the rundown for the job, explaining that a gang called Scavenger took over an office building with the company who owns it, requesting Krimgar mercenary group to help, and them wanting to hire him as a mage for fire support. Jenny also informing him there are other jobs if he doesn't want this one, as he's pretty famous for surviving the old crocodile. Jenny giving her recommendation to take the Krimgar job since mercs never cheat you out of money or anything of the sort, warning him that there are a lot of guys who chop off hands and feet after a job is done. Jenny then boastfully saying that is why she is here, as she guarantees the safety and trust of both client and freelancer for a bit of a fee. Van smiling as he accepts her recommendation for the Krimgar job. On the day of the job at the meeting place, the Krimgar mercs are posted up waiting for their hired mage to arrive. The group discussing the lightning mage they hired for 20 million sell on the recommendation of Jenny. All of them left shocked in disbelief upon seeing how young the mage they hired is. Our boy as Van strolling toward them whilst munching on a sandwich. The leader of the mercs, Dre, stating he hopes they won't have any harm to each other in the operation before starting the briefing, pulling up a projection and explaining everyone's roles and units, with Van over in the corner thinking that he's a born leader. Dre then finishes the briefing by telling Van that he just needs to pour in attacks at the beginning and then support Unit 3 from the back, everyone heading off to get in position with the briefing over and the mission starting. Our boy looking over the myriad of weapons the mercs use, thinking that in this line of work, everyone knows sometimes you need a miracle like magic, and that's why everyone is always desperate for mages. Outside the office building, Dre tells Van that the enemies inside may have also hired a mage. Van then using his mana sense to find a visual substitute that the enemy mage is using to scout, grabbing it in his hand and infusing his own mana into it, tracing all the way back to the mage and destroying their spell, forcing the magic to rebound right to the mage, taking them out. Van then informs Dre that he took out the mage and now is the best time to go in. Dre peeking the corner to find the scavengers inside in a panic. Dre then orders his group to initiate the mission, all of them rushing forward using smoke grenades for cover, with Van waltzing in as well, pulling out the new Viper and taking a hit, surprising him at the burst of mana from it, then stepping forward and unleashing a barrage of lightning with his spell Chain Lightning, shattering the office windows and electrocuting the enemies at the windows and out the front, stunning all of the primary members of the Grimgar mercs, who then begin their own coordinated assault on the building. Wei On using his Tonfa batons to handle one of the scavs, knocking them out, whilst Kithel snipes an enemy sniper who is locked on Wei On, protecting their youngest. Ike and another shield user launching their giant metal shields at the rushing enemies, taking them all down and clearing the way. Even still, more scavs come charging forward, with Dre commanding his mercs to take care of them fast. Him taking note of one of them in the middle, thinking something is different about him, with that man then bursting past all of them, targeting the mage in the back, near instantly arriving right next to Van, his dagger rapidly approaching Van. But with a bang, Van pulls and fires his gun without hesitation, catching the man off guard. Van, satisfied with his attack that quickly combines aim assist, outburst acceleration, and shock reinforcement, and his new gun that can withstand it. Dre then running over to check on his state in a panic, Van calmly replying that he can protect himself so he doesn't need to worry. Dre, Wei On, and Kithel impressed at this mage's versatility. Unit 1 led by Kithel then get into position, scaling the side of the building and assaulting the upper floors of the office, ambushing the scavs inside, followed by Wei On and Unit 2 leaping up to the rooftop above with their superhuman strength, whilst Dre leads Unit 3 with Ike and Van following him inside the ground floor. After clearing the first floor, Dre calls in over the radio, Kithel responding after a short silence that the second floor is clear, to Dre and Ike's relief. The units then join up to clear out the third floor, even easier than Dre expected. Dre internally impressed with the help of the mage, thinking a proper mage is really powerful. Kithel then sneaking up to him and whispering that they should hire the mage, but Dre walks off saying they don't have the money. Kithel arguing back, swooning over the prospect of all the money someone like him could bring in. Dre brushing her off again, radioing in that they'll continue with the plan, now heading up to the rooftop where Wei On is. But Dre is left in shock when Wei On's broken voice replies, clearly in trouble. Everyone quickly rushing to the rooftop to find him and Unit 2 splayed out on the ground with blood splattered everywhere. Dre, with the heavily wounded Wei On in his hands, ordering the others to give out regeneration pills to the injured. Wei On, now with his wound healed, wearily apologizing to his captain, whilst Van, with his poor physique, only just reaching the rooftop, concluding from the current situation that the person that left all these mercs alive must still be here. At these words, Dre, leaving Wei On with Van, forms up with those left and begins scouting the rooftop. The furious Dre asking aloud, "Where are you?" A figure sitting atop the building's antenna replying that he didn't expect guests this early, with a bloodlusting smile staring down from above. The menacing scavenger divulging their plan to use the network of this office, which controls the taxes of District 53 to steal hundreds of millions a cell, without even needing to go to the city government building. Dre replying that he didn't expect a retired military guy to take on something like this, adding that no normal criminal could have as much bloodthirst as that. with his gun trained on him. The old man then pulling out a red pill, declaring he won't be stopped by some mere mercenary. The mercs then open fire on him, the scav leaping down, avoiding the gunfire and consuming the pill as he lands, emerging from the smoke with a sinister, shadowy aura, his hair and eyes black, with crimson pupils, bursting forward and ending the life of a merc, his hands clenching the insides of the merc, then ripping out his heart, claiming that this is why he left them alive, as he clenches the organ in hand. Van to the back of the frightened mercs, noting this to be black magic, and seeing him consume human flesh, he concludes that assuming similar systems exist to World 2.0, then he must be a vampire or bloodier. The scav launching forward once more and slashing clean through the shield of Ike, who tried to protect another merc. The scav, having bypassed Ike, takes a bite out of the neck of the helpless merc. Dre finally giving the order to attack, sending all the mercs into a charge. However, the scav swiftly weaved through them, slicing them up on his way to Dre, who clashes with him knife to knife, sending him flying back into a wall. Kithel stopping his further advance with a bullet through his skull, with her unit unloading on the scav, who simply eats the attacks unfazed, then charging toward them, ready to kill the firing squad, stopped in his tracks by a bolt from the sky. Van's lightning magic, thunder calling. Van, with lightning emitting off his hands, thinking of his successful control of the AoE and mana usage of the spell. But in the next instant, his magic barrier gets pierced by the scav. Van, having already predicted he'd be targeted, backs up, thankfully upping his barrier strength and having it absorb the shock on breaking. The scav choosing to ignore the gunfire of the mercs and prioritize the more dangerous lightning mage. Van quickly imbuing his shooting combo magic on his gun before he reaches him, letting off a mana-infused shot that splits in four, shredding 4 holes in the scav, then stepping forward to finish the job, wary as even one mistake could cost his life with this fragile body of his. But he is determined that sometimes close combat is necessary, grabbing his neck with his lightning charged hand and unleashing his lightning magic with the spell Bolt. The scav persevering through the attack, grinning as he says, "You won't kill me with this." Van, ice cold and unperturbed by his taunt, switching back to his gun and sending 2 shots into his head. The main mercs of the group taking the opening to jump on his back and hold him down. But even still, the mercs have no way to kill the still resisting scav. Dre asking Van if he knows a way. Van thinking of black magic that needs a lot of sacrifice to greatly amplify stamina and recovery rate, most using flesh or blood for energy. Though when that's not enough, they lose their ability to reason. Hence why he left all these people alive to prolong his fighting ability. Also noting that black magic is rare because of these side effects, with few knowing info on it. Then Van steps up and places a hand on the restrained scav, using his mana to draw out all the black magic from the scav, who screams in agony as he rapidly ages before collapsing, drained of the black magic, now in a sphere above Van's hand. Van telling the confused Krimgard mercs that it will be fine to kill him now. Now standing to the side on his own, he looks over the ball of black magic still in his hand. However, without a container to keep it and have the chance to learn about black magic, he instead lets it scatter to the winds. The young Wei An, witnessing this scene, calls out to him, asking if he is a genius or something, as he has never seen someone control mana like that, claiming it has made him realize how pathetic his mana is. Van himself amazed that Wei An was able to see him use mana from over there, when no one else had realized what he was doing, thinking if so, he was born with very high mana sensitivity. Wei An getting to his feet and asking if he were to mimic him, would he also become stronger? Van telling him that Dre Krimgar is a good leader and to seek his advice instead, walking off and finishing with a smile that if he makes up his mind about what he wants to do, he should go see Jenny. Dre, looking over the aftermath, turns to find Van and bows in thanks. Them speaking of the unfortunate losses that come in this field. Van then asking Dre if they can take some blood from the scav and send it to Jenny, with Dre agreeing, also pulling out his tablet to complete Van's payment of 20 million cell, before extending his business card saying he hopes there is a next time. Van taking the card and turning to leave, with a smile on his face, thinking it wouldn't be a bad idea to stay in touch with him. If you enjoyed the vid, like, sub, and comment below. Peace.